The blue lights hit your rear-view mirror before you even realize you've done anything wrong. Your chest tightens a little. You slow down, signal, and pull over. The engine hums quietly, but everything else feels loud. Your thoughts, your breathing. The officer steps out of the patrol car, adjusts something on their belt and starts walking toward you. And then, almost instinctively, you reach for your phone. Now let me ask you something honestly. Have you ever been in a traffic stop where you weren't sure if you should speak, stay silent, or record what was happening? If you have, I want you to share that experience in the comments, because what you felt in that moment matters more than you think. And stay with me, because there's something most drivers completely misunderstand about filming police that could either protect you or quietly make your situation worse. Let's get into it. There's this common belief floating around that filming police is always protected, always safe, and always the smartest move. And legally speaking, yes, in many situations you do have the right to record law enforcement in public. Courts have repeatedly recognized that. But what people don't talk about is what happens in the moment when an officer looks directly at you and says, "Turn that off." That's where things get complicated, not just legally, but psychologically. Because now you're not just a driver, you're a person being evaluated. You see, during a traffic stop, the officer isn't just checking your license or running your plate. They're reading you, your tone, your movements, your hesitation, even how quickly you respond. And when a phone comes out, especially a camera, something shifts in that interaction. Some officers remain completely professional. Others? Their tone changes, slightly at first, then more noticeably. "Why are you recording?" It sounds like a question, but it's not really a question. It's a probe. And this is where many drivers make their first mistake. They either get defensive, overly aggressive, or they try to explain too much. Let me walk you through a realistic moment. The officer is standing by your window. You've already handed over your license and registration. Your phone is mounted, recording quietly. "Officer, turn off the camera." Now your brain starts racing. You've seen videos online. You think you know your rights. But in that exact moment, pressure does something strange to people. It makes them either freeze or talk too much. Some drivers respond like this: "I know my rights, I can record you." And just like that, the tone changes. Now here's the part that most people don't realize. It's not always about whether you're right. It's about how you say it, when you say it, and what the officer perceives in that moment. Because officers are trained to control scenes, control uncertainty, control potential threats. And a person recording them, whether legally justified or not, can sometimes be interpreted as unpredictable behavior. So what should you actually say? This is where the lawyer language comes in, not aggressive, not submissive, controlled. Something like this: "Officer, I'm not interfering, I'm just documenting for my own safety." Notice what that does. It doesn't challenge authority directly. It doesn't escalate. It frames your action in a calm, non-threatening way. But here's where it gets deeper. Timing matters more than the words themselves. If you say that immediately, calmly, without attitude, you keep the situation stable. But if you wait until the officer is already irritated, your exact same words might land completely differently. That's something people rarely understand. Let's talk about another scenario that happens more often than you think. You're recording. The officer walks back to their car with your documents. Minutes pass. 5, 10, maybe longer than expected. You start wondering, is this normal? You keep recording. The officer returns. Step out of the vehicle. Now your heart rate spikes again. And here's where filming becomes even more sensitive, because now movement is involved. Officers are especially alert during this phase. Hands, pockets, body positioning, it all matters. If you're holding a phone while stepping out, that alone can change how they assess the situation. Some drivers try to keep filming while moving, fumbling with the phone, half paying attention to instructions. That's risky. Not illegal, but risky. A better approach? Place the phone in a visible, stable position. Let it record without making it the center of attention. Then comply with the instruction clearly. Because here's the truth most people don't like hearing. Your safety in that moment is more important than proving a legal point. Now let's go into something even more uncomfortable. Sometimes, officers will repeat the demand. Turn it off. I said turn it off. This is where emotional pressure builds. Repetition is a tactic. It tests your response under stress, and drivers often crack here. They either shut the camera off immediately out of fear, or they double down emotionally. Neither is ideal. Instead, this is where controlled repetition helps. Officer, I'm not interfering. I'm just documenting. Same tone, same words. No added attitude. You're not escalating. You're not backing down blindly either. You're holding a position calmly. Now, let me be very clear about something important. There are situations where officers may legally restrict recording, not because they feel like it, but because of specific circumstances, like active investigations, safety concerns, or interference claims. And here's the dangerous myth. People assume every demand to stop filming is automatically unlawful. That assumption can get you into serious trouble. Because if an officer believes your recording is interfering, even if you disagree, that can escalate into detainment or even arrest. And once that happens, everything changes. You're no longer just documenting. You're now part of an active enforcement situation. And that's a line most people don't realize they're crossing until it's too late. Let's talk about passengers for a moment, because this gets messy fast. You're driving. Your friend in the passenger seat starts recording loudly. Yeah, we got you on camera. That changes the dynamic instantly. Now the officer isn't just dealing with one person. There's noise, movement, possibly conflicting behavior. Even if you're calm, your passenger might unintentionally escalate things. This is why experienced drivers often say something quietly like, just stay calm, don't argue. Because one person's behavior can affect everyone in that vehicle. Now let's go into officer psychology a bit deeper, because this part matters more than legal theory. During a stop, officers are trained to look for anomalies. Anything that doesn't fit the normal pattern raises attention. Recording itself isn't illegal, but it's not neutral either. It stands out. And when something stands out, it gets analyzed. Why is this person recording? Are they nervous? Are they trying to provoke something? Are they hiding something? Even if those questions are unfair, they still exist in that officer's mind. So your job isn't just to be right, it's to be predictable. Predictable behavior lowers tension. Unpredictable behavior raises it. Now here's a subtle mistake many drivers make that almost nobody talks about. They narrate while recording. This officer is harassing me. I didn't do anything wrong. That might feel justified, but from the officer's perspective, it can sound like escalation or accusation. And once an officer feels accused, their tone often hardens. Instead, silence or minimal speech is often more effective. Let the camera do its job quietly, because evidence doesn't need commentary in real time. Another situation. The officer starts asking unrelated questions. Where are you coming from? Where are you headed? You're recording. You're unsure how to respond. This is where things get layered. You can answer, you can decline, but how you do it matters. A calm response like, I prefer not to answer any questions, is very different from, why are you asking me that? That's none of your business. Same intention, completely different outcome. And when you're recording, your tone becomes part of the evidence too, not just the officer's behavior, yours as well. Now let's address something people are often surprised by. Filming doesn't guarantee protection. It can help. It can provide evidence. But it doesn't create immunity in the moment. If things escalate, they escalate regardless of whether a camera is on. That's why strategy matters more than emotion. And here's something I've seen happen in real-world situations more times than I can count. A driver insists on filming aggressively. The officer becomes increasingly irritated. A minor traffic stop turns into a prolonged encounter. Backup arrives. Now what could have been a 5-minute interaction turns into 20, 30, sometimes more. Not because filming was wrong, but because of how it was handled. So when an officer says, "Stop filming," understand what's really happening beneath the surface. It's not just about the camera, it's about control, perception, and uncertainty. And your response needs to account for all three. Calm, measured, repeated if necessary, not emotional, not confrontational, not submissive either. Because the goal isn't to win an argument on the roadside. The goal is to get through the encounter safely, cleanly, and without creating new problems. And if something does go wrong, that's what courts and legal processes are for later, not the side of the road. One last thing that people rarely think about: silence. There are moments during a stop where saying nothing is actually the most powerful move. Not silence out of fear, silence out of control. You've stated your position, you're recording, you're complying with lawful orders. Now you let the situation unfold without adding fuel to it, because every extra word has potential consequences. And in high-pressure situations, less is often more. So the next time those blue lights flash behind you and your instinct tells you to reach for your phone, remember this. It's not just about whether you can record, it's about how you carry yourself when you do. And that small difference is where most people either protect themselves or quietly make things worse without even realizing it.